What does Kai Havertz actually do? That might sound like a strange question to ask of a player who's cost a combined £120 million, has played for 3 separate Champions League clubs, and has scored the winning goal in a Champions League final, but we're asking it all the same. He's definitely polarising, he might be a little bit misunderstood, and Arsenal fans are certainly very confused by him right now. So, what does he do? To answer this incredibly and surprisingly complex question, I thought it best to go back to the very best version of Kai Havertz that we have ever seen. Sadly, that means we have to go back to 2018-19 in the Bundesliga. So we've got his FB ref profile right here, and we can clearly isolate what he was very good at. Non-penalty goals per 90, 0.44. So even the fact that he took some penalties didn't diminish the fact that he was close to a goal every other game, which is a really good hit rate, particularly for an attacking midfielder. His non-penalty XG is also sky high. Lots of shots, lots of involvement. Passes into the box and progressive passes, really strong as well. He was clearly very important to Bayer Leverkusen, and the fact that he was one of their top scorers is quite rare for an attacking midfielder, but it shows you how hard they worked him to get into goal-scoring situations, and situations that suited his skill set. So what do I mean by that? What does that actually look like? Well, here's a couple of examples. We'll start here with one of the teams that you would regularly see Bayer Leverkusen field in this general period, a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-3, with Kai Havertz as one of 2 number 10s, sharing the role with Kerem Demirbay. The workman-like midfield here managed to balance things out. 3 centre-backs, good bit of pace here on the left, steadying presence here on the right-hand side with Lars Bender. Here's another example, 4-2-3-1, probably more regular. You see this more commonly with Kai Havertz here as the singular number 10. Now what Leverkusen were really good at doing here was surrounding him with pace and proper width. Bailey and Diaby both on the pitch here. And they didn't necessarily involve him in these triangles here, get him involved too early in build-up. They were very good at getting the ball into the wide areas and pushing Diaby and Bailey all the way down the flank in order to open the space in the middle for Kai Havertz. So we'll show you what that looks like. We'll bring on a defensive line here. Back 4, and we'll bring on 2 midfielders as well. And what Leverkusen were able to do was push Bailey, say, up the left-hand side. He takes the ball with him. He pushes the fullback all the way back, makes this run into the box. Volland will then pin the centre-backs to make sure that they're nice and deep. And what Havertz was really good at was just sensing these runs, this space here. Where is the space going to open up for him? It's always in this general area. And so when Bailey moves down into this position and pulls the ball back, he crosses the ball in here, and Kai Havertz is able to move into this area and take advantage. With Volland getting out of the way and making sure these centre-backs weren't necessarily in his way, he was elite, genuinely elite, at sensing when to time the run and getting into these areas to get on the end of shots. 17 goals, 3 assists in the 2018-19 season, truly announced himself on the world stage as one of the best young players that we can see, and at least one of my friends, not going to name names, promised me that he'd be winning a Ballon d'Or in the years to come. Hasn't quite happened yet. To be fair, it wasn't just my friend who thought he was great. This is a quote we've got from Thomas Tuchel singing his praises in 2021. He's very comfortable in the box. He's very comfortable in high positions. He's very good at offensive headers. We did see that quite a lot. He was very good with his head at Bayer Leverkusen. He did hint that as well at Chelsea. We'll move that on a bit. He has good timing to arrive in the box. Exactly what we were just showing you. Good finishing, good composure. Now that was something he did have at Leverkusen that we haven't seen so recently. He was able to get into the box and chip the keeper quite a lot. It happened a fair amount. Near post, through the keeper's legs, chip. There was a lot of composure on show on these finishes that, again, we haven't necessarily seen since he left the Bundesliga. So what's happened? Why aren't we seeing these Kai Havertz traits nowadays and in the Premier League? Well, partially we have to blame Chelsea for this, and the reason is because they played him in not his most comfortable position. We take a look at the minute share courtesy of this graphic from The Athletic. 6,311 minutes for Chelsea, only 23% of those minutes played in his favoured central attacking midfield role. A whopping 63% spent up front on his own. Not really the position he's most comfortable in. Okay, he's quite tall, okay, he's good on the ball, but that's not what he wants to do. And it's actually really difficult to make the runs that we just showed you and talked about at Bayer Leverkusen when you are the focal point. So imagine this is now Chelsea and that these dots are blue. This is now Kai Havertz. It's really, really difficult to make this run into this space and convert this ball when you're this guy. You need to be this guy. You need to be making this run, and that's what Kai Havertz does. If you're stuck occupying centre-backs, you're creating space for somebody else, which means somebody else is benefiting from those chances that you once did in the Bundesliga. And that ultimately was Chelsea's biggest failing with him. Partially because of recruitment. They weren't able to find a number 9 that Thomas Tuchel was happy with. They weren't able to find a number 9 that Graham Potter was happy with. So they just kind of stuck him up front for 2 seasons, and he was pretty miserable. It was clear that he wasn't very comfortable in his own skin, wasn't very comfortable on the pitch, but it was a case of needs must, and Kai Havertz, to a point, was the fall guy. So what that's left us with is Kai Havertz with a very muddled skill set. We're not 100% sure what he's great at anymore. People are looking at him and trying to understand what kind of a player he is, and they're struggling because his actual skills aren't shining. Now, we fast forward to this summer, and Arsenal decide to buy him for 65 million pounds. They make him a big money signing, and you hope that they have a good plan to settle him in and make sure that those skills shine. Now, we're led to believe over the course of the summer that they absolutely do. They want to play him as the left number 8. So this is Arsenal's general formation and team from last season. They then sold Granit Xhaka, and they wanted to put Kai Havertz in here. Obviously, the plan was to put Declan Rice in here, although Thomas Partey has been involved from right back up until this point. But this is roughly what they wanted to do. They wanted to put Havertz in for Granit Xhaka. The reason why is because Xhaka got 7 goals and 7 assists last season in a surprisingly enterprising attacking role. I think we're all a bit surprised when we saw Xhaka consistently popping up in this area and converting chances. And once he'd gone, I think Arsenal said to themselves, okay, we're creating those chances for that player. We've got a player who's crashing into the box and running onto cutbacks. Who can we find to turn those 7 goals into 15 goals? Take a look at the Bayer Leverkusen tape. Clearly, that is Kai Havertz. That is his forte, making that run from this area into the box, running onto the ball and putting it into the back of the net. Fantastic, great logic. Couple of problems. Number 1, if you are going to play this deep in midfield, you are going to have to be a little bit better at not just going this way, but also going this way. As a number 8, you're going to have to do some defensive stuff. You're going to have to work back into the defensive third and do more in the middle third. And Kai Havertz is really used to. He didn't do that much of it at Bayer Leverkusen. He got even further away from that at Chelsea because he played up front. And when he was at Leverkusen, we referenced those 2 midfield warriors who did a lot of shielding work for him. And because of the high pressing on show, Havertz was consistently doing his defending in these areas and pushing forward. And once the ball had gone past him, it was somebody else's responsibility. So he's not necessarily used to doing all of that so far. The other issue, and this is the big one, it's what's really jarring with people right now, is the lack of dynamism in his play. There's no burst. There's no acceleration. He's playing at a very pedestrian pace, and it's all very one-paced. If you're playing in midfield, you need to be able to skip past a player, change up the gears and go. You need some burst. Even if you're trying to break into midfield and play this run here, you are going to need to be able to burst past people and get into the box and run off their shoulder. And so what this means is whenever he receives the ball, it's going backwards. You know, it's going back to the fullback, it's going back to the midfielders. Even if they use him to skip the press, he tries to beat a man, he fails, he checks his run, he plays it back to one of these guys. The passing isn't enterprising. There's no runs, there's no explosivism on the ball. It's really tough for him to make what you perceive to be a 65 million pound impact if he's not doing any of these things because it's not exciting the fans. So far, the best things that he's done for Arsenal are as follows. He played up front in the Community Shield, and from that area, he was able to allow Arsenal to skip past City's press. He's able to take the ball in and then distribute it backwards if possible. That was important. That's a good team function. Beating the press gets you up the pitch. He's also been pretty good at winning duels and second balls in the final third. And against Palace, when they were down to 10 men, he was very good at keeping possession during a rocky period just to see that out and make sure that they could win it. Again, good team functions. Not what we're looking for from a 65 million pound player, not even close. So let's answer the question. What does he do? He currently presses very well, wins duels and second balls in the final third, and he can fill in up front if they need him to. But he has an astonishing lack of confidence. He does not make the difference as he used to, and he has no burst or dynamism in his game. It's just much easier to focus on what he doesn't have than what he does have right now because big price equals big expectation. So let's hope that Arteta can settle him down, give him a consistent role, find him some confidence, and he can start to blossom in those more conventional ways as well.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.